Hey, Katie, so good to have you on today. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Katie Glick. My job title is UX content strategist. I work at NerdWallet, which is a financial tech company.
And then talk to us about the journey of how you got into UX writing and content design.
Okay, sure. So I actually come from a copywriting background. My pathway kind of went copy editor, copywriter. And as a copywriter, I got into the tech world and was working for online retail. And it was there that I kind of got introduced to technical writing, UX writing. I was never a technical writer, but I did do a lot of what is now considered UX writing as part of my job. I would be given charge over like a particular vertical, let's say, and the copywriters on my team were responsible for all writing under that vertical, whether it be emails, whether it be microcopy, documentation, like whatever was needed. So we were kind of a catch-all thing. And um, it kind of, for me, I found that my strength was in that type of product writing and user experience centered writing, as opposed to the more marketing and communications writing. And was just talking with a superior at my company who's kind of a mentor to me. And she said, hey, there's this job called UX writing, and people do it full time. They make a lot of money at it. And so she's like, if you really like this, you should try to go in that direction with your career. And I did, basically.
Hey, sometimes you need someone else to show you the way a little bit, which is a very real thing.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I'm recognizing that you're good at this. You should do it. Do more of it.
Yeah, yeah. And at the time, I did not know that there was even such a thing, So it was like really eye-opening to hear like, oh, this is a whole job.
And talk to me about, once you got the job, now this idea of maintaining success within the job and ensuring that, you know, obviously there's always some type of imposter syndrome when you first get a job and you're like, okay, I got to learn a lot about what I'm doing. But at the same time, you do learn, and then you're like, how can I really grow within this position and then maintain this over a period of time? So what goes into that?
Um, well, it probably depends for each person. For me, a lot of it was that I had a really strong writing background, but I didn't have a really strong technical and design background. So, one of the first things that I did once I figured out I wanted to go in this direction and really make this my career was to do a certification program. Because for me, I had all the technical skills I needed to do the job, but I didn't have the knowledge of like the typical workflow and processes and how this type of role works effectively on the type of teams that they work on. So doing a certification class really helped me like learn all that stuff without having to fumble my way through it and make a lot of mistakes on the job. I was able to understand from the beginning, like, how does this role work effectively with designers, with product managers, with other types of cross-functional roles. So that really helped. I also did a lot of networking. For UX writing in particular, it's a newer field. So there's a really great community out there of people who are really supportive. There are a lot of mentors out there. I did some mentoring sessions with people who like graciously offered their time. And I just kind of spent probably about a year doing as much as I could in terms of learning, attending workshops, attending networking events, and just like immersing myself in the whole world of this field.
Very cool. And, I think a big part of some of the stuff that you're saying is one is getting actual feedback from other people in the industry, which is huge. And then understanding, communication channels, which often is not taught. It's like, how do I communicate with a product manager? When do I communicate with them? When do I communicate with a designer? Am I working like right next to a designer? Am I in their flow? What is that looking like? And those are questions that, yeah, if you can get them answered earlier, it's going to be a lot more helpful and provide a lot more clarity. Now, when we dive into like the skills that are needed to be successful in the job, we sort of touched upon them just now, but if you can dive into sort of more of the ecosystem of skills you need in order to do your job well, what does that look like?
Yeah, well, so I mean, first of all, writing skills, number one, and I think that's kind of the obvious, since it's in the title of UX writer. I think one thing that's really important is having knowledge of design, and especially of how design thinking works, and also design programs, because right now in my day-to-day, I work in Figma. So I work directly in the designs with my product design partner. So understanding how to use those tools is very important. And also just understanding how designers think, because you're working so closely with them, and you are in effect not just writing, but actually kind of contributing to the design during the idea process and the discovery process, and not just once it's already done. So ideally, you're not handed a finished design and say, now write the words, now fill in the lorem ipsum. You are actually there from the beginning of the process. So really understanding how to effectively work within a design process is really important. The other big thing is communication skills. Because this is a new field, a lot of times you're working with people who have never worked with a UX writer or a content designer before, and are not 100% sure of what your role is, or what you do even. So you have to do a lot of communicating, first of all, about what value you're providing, about what you're actually doing and what problems you're solving. And also you have to communicate your decisions and like back up the decisions that you have made during the course of your job to not just your teammates, but to stakeholders and people who might have leadership roles at the company. So it's really important that your communication skills be on point when you're going before people like that to defend your decisions.
Very true. And you mentioned one of the tools that UX writers use, which is Figma. Now,
Mhm.
I know many UX writers have their whole workflow based in Figma now, and that feels like where they do almost all their writing. Now, talk to us about some of the tools that you use, and are you doing most of your writing in Figma today?
Yes, I would say for me, and I think it's very personal. I think it would be possible if I wanted to like first work in a Google Doc and then transfer it to Figma to do that. For myself, I prefer to get right into a design and start playing around with the wording. How I tend to work with my designers is I won't work directly in their designs. I will have my own separate one, and I'll just go in and mess it up basically by putting the words where I want them to be, or experimenting with the placement. And so I personally work most of the time in Figma from start to finish. There are times when Google Docs will be what we use. I use like Excel, or the Google version of Google Sheets, I think it's called, a lot. That's what we use at my company to make our copy docs, which is like the separate source of truth for the page content outside of the design. And we do that because not only that it helps in our record keeping, it helps engineering ensure that they have the copyright when they're implementing the designs. And it also helps in that with the copy doc, you don't have to show every single interaction on the design itself, because some of those things can just be reflected within the copy document instead, and it just makes things more efficient all around. So those are the things that I use probably the most in my day-to-day are Figma, Google Docs, and Google Sheets. And In terms of other tools that I use, mostly writing helper tools, things like Grammarly. There's a free web-based app called Hemingway, which kind of you can put your content in there and it will kind of give you a little assessment of how complex or simple it is and evaluate it based on complexity, which for a UX writer is really important because we're always trying to be the most clear and the most conversational. So we don't want to have something that's overly complex. Yeah, I think that's just about it for the main tools that I use.
Hey, very cool. And it's really interesting to hear how much work you do in Figma. And do you have any like Figma plugins that you like that you've used?
I don't actually use any. I would love if we could adopt some at my company. I'm trying to think of, they're totally slipping my mind now, but last year I was briefly exploring some. There are several plugins that actually allow a content designer to actually input content in a way that will update the design without you actually having to go into the design. And I think those type of plugins sound incredibly useful to me because there are times when I'm trying to play around with the design and I completely like mess up the spacing or something in a way that I don't know how to fix because I'm not the designer. So just the idea of having something that would let me do a lot of playing around with the words without having to actually move the pixels of the design around on the page myself sounds really helpful to me. So yeah.
And then, talk to me about your current career journey and what went through your mind and when you were trying to pick a job that you ultimately enjoy. Now, you had this idea, hey, I want to be a UX writer, but when you're trying to pick a company to be a UX writer at, I think there's a lot of decisions that go through your head. And give me the context of what that was for you.
Yeah. So for me, like the decision that really or the thing that really made my decision to work at NerdWallet in particular where I am now is that they have a entire content strategy team. So there's a director, there's a manager, and I have several teammates that are both UX content strategists and brand content strategists that all work together as a team. And that's something I did not experience in my first roles as a UX writer. And that's the case for a lot of people. A lot of times you're the first and only person doing this role at a team. So for me, a place where I could get feedback from peers who are doing the same job as me was really important because it's hard to grow when you're not getting feedback from people who really understand what you do. And so they know how to give you feedback that can help you take you to the next level. So I think that was, if there's one defining thing about why I'm working here, that's it. It's being able to work on a team, being able to have guidance from people more experienced than myself, and also work with peers and like learn alongside them.
Very cool. And I think when people think of NerdWallet, they do think a lot about their content strategy.
Mhm.
And it does seem like a place you would learn a lot from. One of the things that you hear and sort of like nightmare stories of people, of companies who are trying to hire UX writers, but don't really know what they're hiring for. And then you go and work there and it's like they didn't really know that they needed a UX writer. And then they're like, oh, we don't really need one after all. And then you're only there for 3 months. But going somewhere where it's already education around it and they understand the position, I think in your case is super, super helpful. And, I wish more people would do the same and look for companies where they're like, hey, who understands this? So I can get educated by them, that I can have a great boss and I don't need to teach them what I do and they can help guide me and all those things. Yeah, very important. So one things I'd love to talk with you about is also where you see the future of UX writing going. So right now you have UX writers who are now calling themselves content designers because it's more of a all-encompassing term. I guess to some, there's a lot of, internal battle about what's right, what's wrong. And that's just one of the things of, where UX writing is going. Where do you see the future of it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think right now it's really in a state of evolution. And I think you see that in terms of these conversations that are still ongoing about what are we even called? Like, what is the essence of our role? Um, and so I kind of think we may see a little bit more specialization in the future. We already have areas where we overlap with other roles, like there are conversation designers, and that's also a question of can UX writers be conversation designers, or is that a separate role? Because there's a lot of similarities. So I think I have a feeling we might see more and more specialties in terms of UX writing, and it may even at some point cease to exist as its own thing. And instead, people will be hired as even more specialized roles instead of just UX writer. And I think also, when it comes to tech, things are also changing in the products so fast that, there may be new, like we have AI, and we're still kind of coming to terms with what role AI will play in future products. And, we have voice activated products. And I also kind of think that UX writing will expand outside of the tech world. I have seen some things recently where there's content on a product itself, like on the packaging, or somewhere intrinsic to a physical product. And I'm like, this is really great UX writing, actually, where once I was opening in a package, and it's each step as I opened the package, they had an instruction for me as to what the next thing to do was, because it was kind of a complicated process of opening and undoing the product. And I was like, this is amazing UX writing. And it's like on a physical product, not in a tech product. So I think we might see more room for this role outside of just the tech world.
Yeah, very true. I think as long as there's more education around it, then it'll get more defined in the areas of where it's providing value, which I think is like almost all products need UX writing to a large extent. So it's going to be like, okay, what does it look like for this? Again, like what you're saying, physical products, and maybe what type of physical products. And when we talk about people who are getting their first role in UX writing and content design, which maybe a lot of people watching this video, and what are some of the challenges that they should maybe expect to come across or are common that they may face in the workplace?
Yeah. Well, I think the very first challenge is what I already touched upon, is encountering a lot of people who don't understand your role or have never worked with this type of a role before. And I still just yesterday I had a meeting with a new product designer to just explain to her what I do and how it's different from the other content team that we also have at our company. So that's probably the first hurdle is that I think also one thing I've noticed is that every team works differently, and sometimes I've talked with other UX writers, and I find this is very common. Rather than working on like a separate team just of UX writers that works as a team and does things, you're usually embedded with a product team. So you'll be working with either one designer or multiple designers, product manager, and engineers. And each of the teams you work with might work very differently. So I find that I have to do a lot of like switching up of my workflow and my processes to kind of match each team that I work on, because they all have different ways of working together. So that's kind of a challenge at first, is just figuring out how do I work effectively on this team. And if you're new to the role and still learning, kind of makes it doubly hard.
Yeah, it's very true, especially when people are using different ways of communication. And I think it's important for all writers to be at least understand the forms of communication that other teams are using. You don't have to be like in the weeds and but enough to where you can ask for a file and have an understanding of where it's located. I think would be helpful. So for a lot of these people watching the video, they're coming from technical writing backgrounds and copywriting backgrounds. Just some of them are even like English teachers looking to break into UX writing. And they're wondering, is this for me? Because there are a lot of different writing positions that they could jump into. And what are some signs that it would make sense for them to test out the waters in UX writing?
Yeah, well, I think for one, if you are more interested in crafting a good experience for the people who are using the product, in truly meeting their needs rather than, say, selling them something or writing the most exciting copy that makes everyone go wow, but instead you really care about, is this helping the person that I'm writing for? That's probably a good sign that that UX writing might be for you. I also would say if you're very skilled at writing straightforward and concise copy rather than like really flowery and poetic, or beautiful. Like there's a place for fun copy, and we're certainly always looking for moments of delight. But I would say 90% of the job is figuring out what is the most concise, the most clear, and the most straightforward way that I can say this so that people can understand it quickly and completely and move on, and do the task that they're here to do. So if that sounds like a blast to you, figuring that out, then definitely you're probably a UX writer. And also if you're interested in design, I know for me, that was one of the things that drew me to it, is that it was a way for me to be involved in design without having to like go to a boot camp and become a product designer, or do a whole new degree and learn design. I'm really interested in it. I love it, but all my skills and experience are writing. So combining these two things, definitely kind of a dream job for me. So that would be important as well.
Very cool. And I think this leads into the next question, which is, let's say you're looking to add to your team. What type of person would you be looking for?
Ooh, that's a good one, because I think I would be looking for someone, first of all, someone who's very collaborative. The environment at my job is collaborative, not just within our team, but with everyone that we work for. And so you really do need to be looking to collaborate and work together with people. I also would be looking for someone who has a lot of empathy and shows that, not necessarily someone who comes in with this attitude of like, I'm so great, or I'm so impressive, let me show you what I can do, but is actually like, here's how I solve problems, or here's how I work together with people. Somebody who's humble, I would say, but also very technically skilled in a way that shows through, that they don't have to show off. It just comes through in their work.
Hey, that's the best one. You let the work do the talking, right?
Exactly.
And before we go, I know we covered a lot here today. Is there anything that you want to leave the people who are watching the video off with?
I just would say that whoever you are, if you think that this is for you, I think you should give it a go. I would say definitely reach out and find the community of people. We're easy to find. There's a lot of ways to find us. There's a lot of ways to participate. And I think you'll find out very quickly whether this is the job for you just by hanging out with us a little bit, basically.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for being on. And if you're looking to connect with Katie, you can find her on LinkedIn. In the description below this video will be her LinkedIn profile. So make sure to go ahead and click on it if you want to go ahead and connect with her there. And again, thank you for taking the time today to do this video with us. And I wish you the best, and we'll rock and roll.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much.